All right, guys. Happy Friday. You made it. Friday, yes, thank you. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but it's been quite a while since a client has spat on me, and I don't miss it at all. That happened earlier with one of our friends. But anyways, that doesn't stop it for being a great day. Today, we're going to keep going through the behavior change of teaching methodologies. We looked at some of these a few months ago, and now we're going to have a little bit more concise information regarding them. Because in our everyday interactions with the clients, the two that we're going to be looking at, pretty much all of the teaching opportunities fall within these two methods. Today, it's going to be discrete trial training and natural environmental teaching. And like I said, some of this should already be familiar to most of us. When it comes to discrete trial training, this is primarily a technique used where each step in the teaching procedure is broken down into smaller bits. And these smaller bits have a very clear beginning, middle, and end. And typically, when we run discrete trials, we want the environment to be controlled in a way that really facilitates learning. So this is typically done at the table, usually face-to-face, vis-a-vis with the client. Yeah, and I would say when you're working with children, you typically use a lot more DTT than you do natural environmental training. Because I remember when I was working as an RBT, I would have one client where we would just, sit at the table for about 2 hours. And of course, we would alternate between games and different activities. But most of the time, I was just sitting right in front of her and we were getting to work. So that's the kind of thing you could expect with DTT. Another big important thing to stress that it's instructor-led or teacher-led. So you're pretty much the one who decides how instruction is delivered, how much of the reinforcement is delivered, and of course the content of what is taught. And this is primarily useful when you're trying to teach a skill in a very quick and efficient amount of time. Because you constantly repeat it. You repeat enough times, eventually the individual is going to get it. And I remember for the one client I was working with, one of the first goals was for her to memorize safety information. So she needed to know both her parents' numbers, her parents' names, and unfortunately they were living separate. So we would have to run the goals the same from the mom's house as we would the father's. And then, both their addresses too. We would just drill it constantly over and over. And then she got it pretty quick. Yeah, so the discrete trial has a few components to it. Again, we want these to be very discrete. They're separated. So we begin with the SD. Does anybody remember what SD stands for? Close. No. we talked about it when we went over stimulus control a few months ago. Oh gosh, this was probably back in January when we talked about it. Yes, SD. Does anybody remember? I heard something stimulus. What does the D in SD stand for? Very close, Rhea, very close. Discriminative stimulus. Yes. Starting to ring a bell? Yes. It only means that in the presence of this stimulus, the behavior is likely to occur. And it's likely not to occur in its absence. So in discrete trial training, when we provide the instruction, so for instance, if you tell the client, touch the stop sign, that will invoke the behavior. It is likely to happen if you present the instruction and they're not likely to touch it if it's absent or you don't say it. That's pretty much the main idea. As for the SD, but I think it's much easier to think about it as the instruction. So the instruction, and let's say the client is still learning it, so we provide the prompt, a just simple gesture to point at it, and then the response is the client touching the stop sign. And then we look at the consequence. This is typically the reinforcement that is delivered. We say, hey, nice work. And they get a minute on tablet, on the iPad. If we're still on that pairing process where we're trying to fade the tangible and edible reinforcement for the social praise. And to harken back to what we talked about yesterday with pairing. And then the last important bit is the inter-trial interval. This only means that in between each learning opportunity, we're putting a little bit of space. So then the client is able to distinguish when one begins and when one ends. Typically, yeah, about 3 to 5 seconds. In that time, it's also a good opportunity to mark down the result of the trial, either marking if the client did it independently or the prompt level that they needed. And let's take a look at how this looks. This should be somewhat familiar to some of us. Okay. This is...
Alright, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate discrete trial teaching. The client is going to go ahead and show me the color green, and I will demonstrate 3 different forms of prompting to go ahead and assist the client. The first one we'll do is gestural. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. High five. Oh, yeah. The second one we're going to go ahead and demonstrate is going to be partial physical. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. And the last one we'll demonstrate is going to be full physical prompting. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. Devaya, show me the color green. Good job. High five.
You guys see how quickly hearing good job over and over can get annoying? Yeah, but see the classic components of discrete trial training there. Both individuals were at the table. The instruction was delivered. When needed, there was some prompting involved. And then when the individual gave the correct response, there was the praise. So there are a few good things about DTT, and there are also a few not so desirable things that make us consider when it would be appropriate to implement it. So for instance, one of the great things about it is it allows many learning opportunities to happen in a quick succession of time. Since again, you're kind of drilling these things, the individual gets a lot of opportunity to work on it, to develop it. Again, when you're trying to teach something as important as safety skills and being able to identify important information, discrete trial training is probably your way to go. Be very independent response. I'm just doing correctly. And then of course those cons. I don't know about this, but I don't like sitting at the table for very long. And I imagine that's similar for not just you guys, but the clients as well. So yeah, it does require a little bit of attending onto the table. And as you saw with the video, it can feel quite robotic because you have to present the ST in a very similar manner each time. It has to be consistent. And the way you deliver reinforcement, if we want to kind of take some shortcuts, it's going to sound the exact same, and it's going to get boring and repetitive, which gives it that sense that, oh, this feels incredibly robotic. But the big thing is it doesn't reflect real world circumstances because not everything happens at the table. Okay, contrast that with natural environmental teaching or training. This is when you just allow the everyday interactions to play the opportunities for instruction. And pretty much the things we use to promote learning are what the client already likes to do and the things that are already part of their day. What's cool about it is you don't have to be at a table to run NET. This could be done out when they're in the community, on the outing. It could be done outside. It could be done in here. It doesn't have to be at the table. Again, unlike DTT, that is more instructor-led, this is client-led. So we are essentially following their lead, following their interests, and then try to capture those learning opportunities when they present themselves. And I think the main thing we want to teach in these opportunities is functional communication. Getting them to request things, getting them to label, acknowledge the world around them. That is, I think we really want to stress when it comes to NET, because the client is motivated for those things already. Everyone got that down. See what it looks like. That's wrong.
What are you doing? You're spinning the green one. Awesome. Make the green go to the orange. There it goes. Almost there. Awesome. Now, let's see it. Oh, yeah. Make that's an opening. Really fast. Good. What color is this? Red. And your favorite color is blue. Put the blue one on the red. Very cool. You are full of yellow blocks. Now the green and the orange. They're bouncing. What are you doing? You are spinning it. Thanks for answering me. Oh, you're spinning it slow or fast? It's not like a really slow, like a and fast.
Yeah, that was cool. You guys notice the way she approached it is very similar to how we build rapport, just working off of what they are doing and enjoy already. You're spinning the little red ball. So you could start by asking, oh, what color is that? And then, oh, that reminds me that your preferred color is blue. And I noticed that blue bead's right there too. How about we both put them on top of one another, and then bam, you got somebody following a one-step instruction. And when these opportunities present themselves, it can be very easy to get that cooperation that we're looking for. Okay, just as DTT has some components, NET has some as well. So instead of setting a set amount of time to run a particular number of trials, we're instead using the client's natural motivation. We're waiting for those MOs to be present, establishing operations. So let's say we're working on a client requesting to go outside. The way we would want to run this is, just to simply wait for them to demonstrate their interest of going outside, whether or not they're looking outside to the window or the door. If those signs are there that there is that desire to go, then we know what to do. Then presenting the opportunity by either standing next to the door or next to them, for that matter. And then, wait to see if they'll independently initiate the request. If not, you can prompt it. Depending on where they're at, it would either be full vocal response, or if we can get away with it, an indirect vocal, verbal, and say, oh, what would you like? And if the client is non-vocal and they have a different means of speech, then we can use whatever it is they got. Even if they simply just point outside and we can prompt that physical point, bam. We can use that opportunity to get them exactly what it is they want, as opposed to a contrived or a conditioned reinforcer such as the praise or a tangible. Because the natural consequence of asking to go outside is, funny enough, being able to go outside. So that is how it works. And I would say for the vast majority of interactions we have, main learning opportunities, they're going to fall under NET. We're going to follow the client's lead in this, and there will be opportunities for DTT, but those would be much more contrived. So pros. It's probably the best tool to use for generalization, is if we work on having a client make a request to go outside or to any request for a specific reinforcer, chances are they're going to want it outside of the program or in the community. So just putting those things in place allow the client to be able to use it in different contexts, which is exactly what we want. Second, as I alluded to earlier, the reinforcers are natural. They're the natural consequences of what they want. If you want to go outside, well then that gets issued by going outside or getting the specific reinforcer that they're looking for. And then second, yeah, it could help deduce the MO for escape. I don't know about you guys, but if somebody asks me to stay at the table for 10 minutes, I'll be looking at the door and seeing how I can get away. But if we're using the things that are already naturally occurring in the client's day, then yeah, escape is a lot less likely. Now the cons. There are, just by the fact that we have to wait for the individual to have a high enough motivation for the requests or the learning opportunities, it means there are just that many fewer compared to if we were to set some time aside for discrete trials. So we gotta wait. And maybe there won't be any opportunity at a given day. Because as we know, motivation is a dynamic variable. It's not set to a particular time or instance, but it can change by very degrees of context. And also, as you guys may know, it's hard to collect data when everything's happening in vivo, naturally. Yes, and then it also requires us to get very creative with our approaches. Got to be on your toes, and then you be able to really identify when these opportunities are. Now, for you guys, I try to lay out the opportunities and antecedent conditions in the BIPs, so then those opportunities are a little bit more present. But still, say you got to be able to look out for them when they happen. Yeah, this is just a little table that I made, kind of going over the comparing and contrasting them. So DTT, yeah, it's initiated by the instructor, staff, RBT, whoever, typically at desk, contrived reinforcers, fast and repetitive, and its main point is to acquire those skills. Whereas for NET, it's led by the client, can happen anywhere. Natural reinforcement is the typical consequence and is meant for generalization. And what's cool is we can use both. Now, I think I've not been able to find that much use of being able to use both in the correct context, but it is possible. So for instance, if we have a client, and I can think of maybe one or two who would benefit from something like this, but let's say there is a client, we want to work on them to develop maybe some social, emotional skills. And we can start off by simply having them identify emotions. Hey, that can be done at the table. We can show them a picture, a smiley face, or even better, a stock image of someone. And then we ask them, how do they feel? And then we can have them correctly answer. Oh, they feel sad, they feel happy, they feel mad. And then from there, we can take that and work on social skills for them to be able to infer maybe how their peers feel, or give them a scenario and ask them how they might feel in that context. And that would be more NET than DTT. Okay, some things to keep in mind for these learning opportunities. So the first most important thing of DTT is be able to maintain that momentum and ensure that you do properly space out the learning opportunities. Yeah, so about 3 to 5 seconds is the most important thing when implementing the inter-interval delays. Yeah, you don't also want to wait too long for the trials to happen either, because as we mentioned before with procedural integrity, if the delay is too much, then that could be the invitation where prompting or loss of focus may occur. Yeah, and also it's important to give the instruction if the client is paying attention. If they're not, then we miss out on a response there. Thinking the sheet, the most important thing I want to stress is the 3 to 5 second inter-trial interval. Okay, now for NET. Again, it's going to be based on the natural environment, and from this point, we already want to have a little bit of rapport built with the clients, so they naturally want to be around you. Because if they just associate you as, oh, that person is just somebody who tells me what to do, yeah, they're not going to want to cooperate, and even if there's based on their interests. So yeah, as we discussed, I think yesterday, pairing is something so important. Making yourself as a reinforcer, you're actually reinforcing with the clients. So that might require some non-contingent reinforcement or just a lot of freebies. Oh, hey, I know you like this. Here you go. Yeah, and for us to be able to capture one of these opportunities, the client has to show motivation for it. And the typical signs of that would be for them to be attending, so looking at the item, looking over at the door. And then that is when we can prompt the communicative response, typically the requests. And of course, since natural environment training is easy going, easy flow, we don't want to be too hard on the client. We instead just want to keep a calm, neutral tone, not make the adversive, and the next trial when it presents itself. All green is not treated equal. We can, of course, save a higher magnitude level, a higher level of praise, let's say, for when the client does something independently, versus when there is a prompt required to get the correct response. I do highlight this from time to time on the VIPs. So as you go down the prompt hierarchy, if we're doing from most to least, if we're at the least, then bam, we're going to give them the highest level of reinforcement possible. So that just means when there needs to be a more intrusive prompt, it would be a much lower level of reinforcement. And that about covers it as far as the material. Any questions on DTT and NET? These are okay to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, before we get to the questions, I actually wanted to show you a video. This is one on capturing and contriving motivation. Because if we're going to base our instruction largely on naturally occurring opportunities, then we want to see how we can better identify those and possibly even set up the stage to create those or to contrive them. So this is what I wanted to show you guys. And of course, this is by Dr. Negridi.
Let's go up to the elemental teaching procedures and let's talk about a couple of things. Page 33 in your teaching manual. All right.
I didn't include the teach manual.
Okay, let's talk about this. Let's say that what I want to do is I want to teach somebody to use the sign to make a request to me. And I've decided that I'm going to start out with teaching a few signs, and they're going to be idiosyncratic. The learner has a very limited number of people that are in there. There's family members, there's grandma and grandpa and Aunt Mary. There's about 6 people that this learner sees on a regular basis. And maybe add 2 more, the teacher and a teacher assistant or something like that. So it's about 8 people in this person's world. So they don't need a huge audience, right? They have some problem behavior, like you were suggesting before, this good old solid wax to the forehead. See? So I've decided, and this learner has no method of speaking, we're going to try some sign commands. We're going to try some command, we're going to try it with sign, and we only have 8 people that are approximately part of the audience, right? So I'm not worried about whether they be standard signs or anything. As long as the 8 people in that world know what that sign means, that's enough for the large me. I'm eventually going to make a little booklet, if this works. I'm going to make a little booklet of pictures of him doing the signs, and everybody that becomes a new member of our audience needs to look at that book, and they'll understand what this person needs. Okay? So I'm starting in on it. All right. Now let's say that the very first thing I'm starting with is we're gonna have him do this. He's going to do this, right like this with his index finger, and he has a love for Cheetos, one of my favorite things. And he's like me. He likes the crunchy ones, not the puffy ones. Right? So he likes the crunchy Cheetos. So I got him. All right, now I'm in the process. Now he doesn't imitate. So I can sit down with him and demonstrate till the cows come home. He just grabbing for the Cheetos. He doesn't understand that what I'm doing is I'm showing him how to do it. And there's no tendency to imitate. All right. So what am I going to do? I'm going to sit with him. I'm going to make sure I control the Cheetos. I got him. You can't get them. I got them. I put them inside a little container that only I can get in and out of easily. I don't want him grabbing the bag and running off because he could. I'm going to sit down like that. See? Now, I'm going to take his hand like this. I'm going to sit side by side with him. I'm going to hold out a couple Cheetos and give it to him freely to start with, just so he's with me. Then I'm going to take his hand and go up like this, all the way like this. See? And then I'm going to give him a couple of Cheetos right away for, hey, you cooperated with my prompt. If he doesn't cooperate with that prompt, I'm going to sit there, and that'll be the first example of another skill in Essential for Living, tolerating a physical hand-over-hand prompt. Because he's going to need that for lots of other things, not just increasing his mandor requesting repertoire. He's going to need it in a lot of other circumstances because he has no tendency to imitate. He's going to need to tolerate physical prompting, physical guidance. Otherwise, he's going to be extremely hard to teach. Make sense so far? All right. So now, here's an example. What happened now? As I'm doing this, I'm gradually fading my prompt. This is his hand. This is my hand. This is his hand right here. This is my hand. Okay, like this. I'm going up like this, and I let go a little bit like this, and he stops right there. What do I do? You know what most people would be inclined to do? Give him another little boost and give him the Cheetos. Why would I not do that most of the time? All right. Here's the value of the concept known as a movement cycle. From the beginning to the end, what do you want him to do? You want him to take his hand up, get his index finger extended, go all the way over here and touch. I guess I was doing his chin one night. Go all the way over and do it and touch the chin. That's what you want. All right. Now, somewhere in the middle of fading the prompt, he stops in the middle of the movement cycle. This is the movement cycle, remember? That's the entire movement cycle, beginning to end. From when you start to make a movement to the end of the sign is the movement cycle, and then you can recycle that multiple times. See where the term comes from? Okay. All right, now, he goes up here like this, he stops. Most people would prompt from the middle of the movement cycle. I wouldn't generally. Why? Could reinforce the stopping. You come up here, you're stopped. Go ahead and push it, you got it. Here's what I would do, here's what I would prefer to do. It's safer, I think, in general, to start him all over again in the beginning. When you stop in the middle, what's going to happen? We're going to start you all over again. We're going to take Hector and do the whole thing like this and all the way like that. I got the whole movement cycle in, and there's his Gito. Then, the next time I try to fade, I'm going to fade not as soon, I'm going to fade later. See, I'm not going to fade right here, because that's where it fell down before. See, I'm going to take it a little further, and then try to curl out and see if I can get it. Make sense? Okay, now the first part was the movement cycle. Okay, when you start in, if I say, let's say you had somebody who was hitting their head in a certain circumstance, right? They go up like this and they stop like this to look around at you, see how you're going to react. Is that treated the same as this? Yes, it is. It is. Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the movement cycle. It's part of the movement that ended up here. But if you let somebody stop in the middle and reinforce that because they stopped halfway in the middle, what have you also reinforced? This much is what you've reinforced. Or what you may have reinforced. We don't know for certain, but there's a risk that you reinforce that. I'm not going there. Just like I'm not going to reinforce going up here and stopping by potentially doing that. That's why movement cycle matters. And it's a shame the term has kind of gone out of vogue, but it has. So we decided that we're going to bring it back. Because for our kids, it's important. Really important. Bring it back. So we are. Let me move it down here a little bit. And there's the description of movement cycle. That's on page 33. Okay. You see the idea? Now, could you get away with not being that precise about it sometimes? Yes, you probably could. But it's risky to do that. It's risky to do that. You don't want to reinforce part of what you want if you can help it. Unless you're doing that straight away. So if I'm teaching him to tolerate this, okay, and doing it in small increments, but my movement cycle at that point is this. My movement cycle is not this. I'm not trying to get this. See? My movement cycle is down here. Makes sense? So as you're teaching, when you're teaching something, you have to say, okay, what is my movement cycle? What do I want the learner to do now? Could that movement cycle change? Sure it could. Right now, my movement cycle is this. That's all I'm looking for. You do that, you get your Cheeto. Right? Yeah. In the same respect of that, if the kid does this, it goes up like this, goes back down, does he get the Cheeto? No, he doesn't. Because the movement cycle I'm after at that moment is this. Now, as you're chaining or shaping something, the movement cycle can change. Yeah? That's why movement cycle matters. And why it's one of the elemental teaching procedures.
Yeah, so he used the
The
example.
elemental teaching procedures, and that's
Use the example of the individual learning to request for the Cheeto, and then I talked a lot about the movement cycle, which is something I do want to bring up eventually, but I'm gonna say that for another time. Okay, let's how about we finish things up with our questions, guys. Okay, which teaching methodology is characterized by being teacher-led, highly structured, and repetitive trials? Boy, baby, all right, yes, that's right. Yeah, incidental teaching is the same thing as natural environmental teaching. They could kind of be interchangeable. Then pivotal response training is something completely different. In NET, reinforcement is typically natural. Which of the following is a clear example of natural reinforcement?
Baby again.
Baby again. Okay. Yes, that's right. B again. Yeah. As it turns out, if you ask somebody to open the door and they're inclined to do it, you get to go outside. Very good. Staff is asking or is teaching for a client to identify fork at a desk using flashcards. What is this an example of?
Daddy.
Discrete, D for discrete trial training.
Daddy.
Discrete trials, yes. Which of the following is considered a major advantage of using NET at our program? B for behavior. Promotes generalization of skills in real world settings. You can ask, think about it this way, a request for somebody to open a door for you can be done here, it can be done at their home, it can be done at the restaurant, it can be done all sorts of places. In the context of NET, capturing motivation refers to what? D for a discrete trial, yes. Taking advantage of a situation where a client is naturally wants something. That is why we try to look out for those MOs, do those preference assessment, find those reinforcers. The instruction, touch blue, given at the start of a discrete trial is technically known as the
Behavior. B.
B for behavior? B as a boy. Yes, discriminative stimulus, the SD. Or again, you can think of SC as simply the instruction. Discriminative stimulus is a big scary word. I prefer not to use it. In a DTT session, if a client responds correctly without any help independently, what should the instructor provide?
D.
So I'm hearing D. D, okay. Yes. If they're doing something with more level of independence, then we want to reinforce that to be stronger. If they still require a little bit of prompting, then yeah, we can kind of withhold just a little bit of that enthusiasm. And yeah, A, B, C are probably not good ideas to begin with. Oh, I guess I just did 6. Yeah. There's 7?
Yeah, but I guess one was numbered different.
I guess so. Okay. Okay. Great. Awesome work, guys. As always. Well, if there aren't any questions, then I hope you all have a great weekend. We'll pick this back up on Monday. Wala naman.